These events took place in the Kaliningrad region. When I was a child, my parents would send me to my grandmother's village for the summer, 2 hours away, and 3 months of happiness. They themselves went on vacation to nearby post-Soviet countries. More than once they tried to take me with them, but I threw a global tantrum because I was best with my grandmother. Until then, the village was nice. 30 houses, all of them occupied by families. No ominous atmosphere. No evil grannies and witches. Naturally, there were drunks, but all more or less adequate. No one with an axe. Even on the contrary. Drunkenly, they gave us some change and gave us sweets. That's why we often watched them and then ran out to meet them and asked for something, looking at them with big, childish eyes. There were 4 of us. Me, Kira, Seryoshka, also a city boy, Vanya, a local boy, and Dima, a true nerd with round glasses and poor health, also a city boy. Summer was a holiday for Vanya, as there were no peers his age in the village, either very young kids or guys 3 or 4 years older. When this event happened for the first time, we were 10, 12 years old. We had a huge field about a kilometer walk from the village, ending with a forest. And it was a great field. I've never seen anything like it anywhere else, with a short and soft, like a lawn, grass for probably 20 meters. And then there were thickets, reeds, swampy terrain, and, accordingly, the forest. We often had picnics there, told our school stories, and just lay there, looking at the clouds. In general, it was our place. Once again, having gathered provisions, we went to dinner. Dima was not there. He was sick again. While we were cooking baked potatoes, the sunset came. The sun was setting behind the forest, and we watched it while munching potatoes. Seryoshka was telling some story. I remember that we were laughing wildly, and then Vanya abruptly stopped talking. His face became stony. He slowly stood up and walked straight to the swamp, where he stopped about 5 meters from the shore. We, continuing to laugh, began to encourage Vanya, but he paid no attention to us. Then Seryoga stopped talking, and then I felt uneasy. I realized that the field became very quiet. Not a single bug was heard. I began to poke Seryoga by the sleeve and ask what happened. He turned sharply and said, "Quiet, you. Look," and pointed his finger at the swamp. At first, I saw absolutely nothing there, but looking closer, I realized that something black was rising from the marshes. Not only was it black, it was also very tall. The grass in the swamp was about 1/2 meter high, and it was getting even taller as it approached. Above the grass, it towered another 2 meters, clearly having the outline of a man, but a man walking there. It was impossible. We had explored the place up and down, and it was an impassable swamp. There was no way to get through that swamp to the forest. No way. It was incredibly scary. It was coming at us, and Vanya stood like a stumbling block. The strangest thing was that not a single sound came from this creature. Not a rustle of grass, not a squelch of the swamp. Recovering, we jumped to our feet. Seryoga ran after Vanya and grabbed his hand. "Let's run." "Why are you standing up?" We rushed to the house, and Vanya clearly did not want to run. We literally dragged him, and it already came out on the path, and that's when I realized it had no legs. It was just about 1 meter above the ground. I shrieked, grabbed Vanya even tighter, and ran like an eagle. Even Seryoga couldn't keep up with me. By the time we reached the village, it had gotten much darker. I leaned on the gate of a neighbor's house trying to catch my breath, terribly pissed off Vanya, who stood there as if under hypnosis. I got angry and slapped him on the arm. "You fool, why were you standing there? They dragged you." "I don't know." That's all he said. Then his mom called him, and he went home in silence. Seryoshka and I stood alone, looking back. Did you see that? He had no legs? I saw it. We stood there for another 5 minutes and went home too. What's most interesting, neither Seryoga nor I remembered anything. This incident fell out of our memory and resurfaced only the next year. However, I do not connect it with mysticism. I think that this is a protective reaction of our body. But Vanya most likely remembered, but still did not mention the incident afterwards. On another day, Dima's mother, Aunt Luba, took us all to the sea. Dima needed to breathe the sea air because he was completely withered. Everyone was in a cheerful mood except Vanya. No matter how we tried to talk to him, he waved us off, and in general he was a bore all day long. But nevertheless, when we returned to the village from the trip, he went to the field with us in the evening. He was even eager, I'd say. Dima was with us too. When we came to the place, we saw scattered potatoes in my bedding. We were very surprised with Seryoga, how we could have left it last time, but decided not to bother. We made a fire again and finished the potatoes. Only Vanya looked at us strangely and kept hanging around the swamp. That evening, nothing happened, and we went home. Soon, we left. Summer was over. Next year, we met again, with new bikes and new ideas for our summer adventures. Seryosha arrived first, then Dima, then me. Seryoja said that it was boring without us, because Vanya was lost, and some other, all in himself. It became boring to communicate with him. That's why they almost never went to him and had a week's vacation together. I was not satisfied with this turn of events. I needed our gang, all 4 of us. So I went to Vanya and made sure that he was something different. I didn't know the word for it then, but I could tell now that he was deeply depressed. He was very depressed about something. But kids don't really notice that. If we had talked to him then, maybe things would have turned out differently. Vanya's mom also noticed her son's strange condition. I heard her talking about Vanya with my grandmother. She said that Vanya has become quiet, doesn't want anything, eats through force. Doctors say that everything is normal, that it's because of loneliness. They say that summer will come, friends will come, and then he will recover. When we arrived, Vanya didn't care. I tried to carry him along with us, but he willingly went only to the field. He didn't go to the sea. He didn't go to the sea. He didn't go for mushrooms. He didn't participate in our games. It made me angry. Seryoga and Dima too. The 3 of us couldn't play Cossacks, and Vanya was always in a bad mood. So one day we decided to sneak off into the field at night. No one liked the idea much, but Vanya caught fire, and we saw our old friend again. That's the only reason we decided to go. When Vanya came to life, his enthusiasm was transferred to us. In the afternoon, we prepared thoroughly. Even at lunchtime, we all slept in order to stay awake at night. We slipped out of the houses around midnight, some of us through the window. Some of us tiptoed through the door. Dima's place was easy. He had a whole second floor and a separate entrance. We had 2 flashlights, but the night was already bright. The moon illuminated the road well. We reached the field. Dima built a fire. Seryoga put up a tent. And Vanya, as always, stuck by the swamp. I was organizing the table. When everything was ready, the 4 of us climbed into the tent and told stories by flashlight. It was really creepy. It was night. There was no one around, only the croaking of frogs. Our fervor was not enough for a long time. After an hour or 2, everyone was already uncomfortable. Everyone wanted to go home. Except Vanya, but it didn't take long to persuade him. He also agreed that we could get in trouble if one of the older ones woke up. He came out of the tent first and told us not to come out while he went to the bathroom. I also thought there was no way I would have gone alone. 3 minutes passed and Daima started calling Vanya, but he didn't answer. And again there was an unnatural silence. No frogs, no fireflies. Nothing could be heard. And then I remembered. It took my breath away. It was even scarier than before. It was night all around, and no one knew where we were. I sobbed and started telling the guys everything. I was angry at myself, at my memory. Seryoga also remembered the events of that day from my words. Daima didn't believe us for a long time, thinking that everything was staged, that we were playing a trick on him. But then he realized that it was not a joke. I don't know what faces we had, but he believed us. We started shouting for Vanya, but he didn't answer. We sat in the tent for about 5 minutes, and then we gathered courage and decided to get out. Since it was terribly scary to go out alone, we all fell out of the tent on the count of 3, and we saw Vanya standing in front of it. The creature hovered over the field and put its incredibly long arms on Vanya's shoulders. It was huge, even bigger than last time, 3 meters tall. I don't even know how to describe it, what it looked like. It was creepy, black, with big, even huge eyes, and their gaze was fixed on Vanya, and he didn't even move. Apparently, the creature was saying something to him. Although we couldn't hear anything, we realized it because Vanya answered it with short phrases like, "Yes, of course." "Good, I agree." We started screaming in terror, calling out to Vanya, but he didn't even try to turn to us, just mumbled these words. Then the creature looked at us. How scary it was. I'd never felt such animal terror before. Seryoga and I rushed to the path. Just like before Vanya, we dragged Dima home. When we reached the village, none of us knew what to do. I was crying. Seryoga was comforting me, and Daima stood there without any emotion. I started breaking him. "Daima, what's wrong with you? Come to your senses. Why were you standing there?" He paid no attention to me, but a neighbor came out to my scream, and then my grandmother. Anyway, that night we made so much noise in the village that almost everyone came. I was hysterical and could not clearly answer questions, but Seryoja told the adults what had happened, and almost all the village men went to look for Vanya. They found him sleeping in the tent, alive and unharmed. Naturally, after such an outcome, no one believed our stories about the creepy creature, and Vanya denied everything, said that we went home, and he decided to stay. We all got the worst of it. Since that night, Vanya had not spoken to us at all, and Dima had become as unsociable as Vanya had been before. Seryoga and I walked together until the end of the summer, trying to understand something and get the truth out of our friends. Nothing worked. No one told us anything. Vanya generally became angry, and Daima claimed that nothing happened. And then the worst happened. Vanya disappeared, and on the same day, the outermost house in the village burned down. Then it was found out that it was arson, and the people in the house had been brutally killed before the fire. The bodies of Aunt Masha and her blind sister Zoya were found in the cellar, with their eyes gouged out and their tongues cut off. And then they found Vanya in the woods. He was covered in caked blood, with a crazed look, clutching a kitchen knife in his hand. Seryosha and I saw him being led out of the forest under escort. We didn't even realize at once that it was Vanya. We were all in shock. We were immediately taken away from the village. I never went there again, and soon we took my grandmother to our house. 5 years passed, and I met Seryosha in the city. I didn't even recognize him right away. We went to a cafe to chat about this and that, and he told me that he went to the village the following year, after the incident with Vanya, though only for a week. It turned out that Aunt Luba had hanged herself that summer because they found Dimka's body in that very field. I don't know what it was then, and I don't really want to know. I assure you, it wasn't a figment of a child's imagination. It was real. I feel sorry for my friends. I don't know what the creature said to them, but I have no doubt that a fatal change in them occurred after they met the creature.